no division has gotten better or more competitive than the AFC West. I mean, you can certainly make a case. The NFC West is good. The AFC North is quietly very good. But the AFC West, the Raiders made the playoffs last year. The Chiefs hosted the AFC title game for a fourth straight year last season, and they won the division 6 times in a row. Denver went out and got Russell Wilson, and the Chargers added a bunch in free agency and in a trade with Khalil Mack. Looking at it from 30,000 feet, how do you handicap the AFC West?
I think you still have to balance it with the Kansas City Chiefs on top. I think there's been the major substantial movement is losing Tyreek Hill, but you still have the best quarterback perhaps in the league, and you still have plenty of the key pieces in place to feel like it's still a team that has also dominated this division since Andy Reid came to the Chiefs back in 2013. I even with the loss of Tyreek Hill, which I mean, is substantial. Like that's a clear-cut threat and the number one receiving option in this offense other than Travis Kelce. And so they're going to have to adapt, but they've made some moves to help them stabilize it. It's not going to replace Tyreek Hill, but it does keep things still moving. Mahomes still has a plethora of weapons. Defense, perhaps the kid out of Purdue makes a little bit of an impact, improves the pass rush, which was a disaster last year. Getting that corner, McDuffie out of Washington, potentially stabilizes that position, which was a position of need. I still look at the Chiefs at the top, but then I don't know how you kind of figure it out the rest of the way, because Denver having a quarterback now with the weapons that Wilson has, it's clearly a locked in opportunity for him. But I think the other thing about Denver that I'm starting to doubt a little bit is whether or not that defense is as elite as people think they are. Like they actually struggled in their DVOA rankings last year. They weren't great at getting to the quarterback. And I talked with Peter Dewey over at BetSided, who's a diehard Denver Broncos fan. And he attributes a lot of that lack of success to once they traded Von Miller, they kind of just punted defensively on the season, and that the first half Broncos were more of that defense that you expect. But to me, I'd have to go Chiefs, then Chargers, because I just buy the quarterbacks there, followed by Denver, I guess, and then the Raiders, because even though the Raiders made the postseason and they got Devontae Adams, there's still a lot missing on the defensive side, and you might be able to try and compete a little bit back and forth with the rest of the division offensively. Defensively, I think they rank at the lowest portion of it, just to try and be able to get some stops. So that's probably the order that I'd go for now, with the Chiefs on top.
Yeah, look, you know what? You can make a case for a lot of different rankings 1 through 4. I mean, you really could. You can make a case for the Chargers finally getting over the hump and being the team you'll look at and say, hey, look, they've got a great young quarterback in Justin Herbert. And you've got J.C. Jackson now at corner with Asante Samuel, and you've got Derwin James in the backfield as well, and Bosa and Mack on the edges. The problem I have with the Chargers, and will forever have with the Chargers until something finally changes, is can they win big games?
Right.
Can they ever win a big game? I mean, this is a team that last year had an opportunity. My daughter goes running out of the office. Has an opportunity to really stamp their seal in the AFC West, so to speak, against the Chiefs last season on Thursday Night Football at home. Couldn't do it. Then they go get blown out by Houston in December, and then lose to the Raiders in that classic wild game, Week 18. I am with you ultimately here. If you said to me, what is the thing you're most certain of in the AFC West, I'd give you 2 things. One is the Raiders defense is going to kill them this season. Look.
That's a good front four too.
They have Crosby and Jones, who are great. I defy anyone who's an average football fan to name one other player on that defense. I mean, what are we talking about? Rock Ya-Sin and Trayvon Mullen at corner? That's not going to play. Like, when you look at the defenses in that division, the Chargers have a lot of talent. I'm with you with Denver. I wonder how much Fangio leaving, that makes a big difference. But there's some talent there. The Chiefs defensively are kind of a wild card because they have so many young guys. Like, I actually think defensively the Chiefs are going to stink early in the year because they just have a million new faces. But how good are they by the middle of the year?
Right. And that's also been a theme for them over the last few seasons
It
too. Not
has.
necessarily because of the young talent,
With
but
Spagnuolo.
them starting to figure out some stuff defensively midway through
Yeah.
and starting to improve when they really need to when everyone starts to freak out.
It is. And so, but like the Raiders, I don't see the upside there. If I'm playing the Raiders and I'm an offensive coach, I'm basically saying, look, we can't let Crosby and Jones beat us. And if we can hold them off for 2 seconds, we're going to score a ton of points. So I think even though they went to the playoffs last year, I think the Raiders are the worst team in the division because I don't think they can stop anybody. I don't love Josh McDaniels as a head coach. Josh McDaniels, when he has not had Tom Brady, has been awful
Yeah.
as a head coach and as an offensive coordinator. And I like Derek Carr. I really do. I think he's a top 12 quarterback in the league, but he's the worst quarterback in the division. Like, so to me, they're the worst team, even though they're not bad. They're just the worst of the four. I I still think the Chiefs, look, that team's won that division 6 years in a row. And until somebody proves they can beat them in a big spot in that division, I'm rolling with them. I still think in the end, you've got Mahomes, you've got Reed, you got a great offensive line, you've got weaponry. It's going to be tough to beat them late in the year. Denver sees them in week 14 and week 17. That's late. That's when they're going to be revving it up, and you're going to have to take them down probably at their peak as long as they're healthy. So I'm with you, High. So I like the Chiefs at the top, and I agree with your rankings. I think the Chargers are the second best team. What do you think of Russell Wilson? Like, do you think that now? Look, obviously he's a big upgrade for them. No one's arguing that point. But
Of course.
is he to you? Is he going to be a guy who goes in there and makes them Super Bowl contender, a playoff contender? Do you think he's past his peak at 34 years old? I mean, what? Because I think that's really the wild card of the division.
I don't think he's past his peak. I think you had a fundamental difference of opinion between how he wanted to operate in Seattle and how the coaching staff wanted to operate for him. Because you saw the first half
Yeah.
of a season ago, not last year, but the year before, he was
MVP.
legitimately a top contender and a top favorite for MVP.
Yes.
The numbers were there. They went back to the postseason. He was having a marvelous season with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. They were using some of their running backs more in the passing game than we initially would have thought. The tight end position was working for them too with a bunch of no name guys.
Yep.
And I actually thought that when they got oh god, I'm blanking out on his name. He used to play for the Rams when he came over to Seattle. What's his name?
Gerald Everett.
Gerald Everett. Like
Yeah.
that's a big, athletic, fast tight end that can operate in the middle of the field and can also block a little bit. And they really didn't incorporate him that much into the passing game. So now you have weapons in Denver. Are they necessarily better weapons than what he had in Seattle? I don't know. We had talked about Denver having great offensive weapons, but Sutton did not have a good year at all last year. Judy got hurt. You still have KJ Hamler in the middle of the field. It's got good speed. Yeah, and Patrick is there too, and he's kind of a bit overlooked. So maybe they have more weapons. I don't know if they necessarily have better weapons than what he had in Seattle.
That's kind of where I fall. Like that's why Denver to me is weird because I look at them and I'm like, hey, Patrick, Judy, Sutton, okay. I like the backs, especially Javonte Williams. As Gonzo points out in the chat, I don't love their offensive line. Their offensive line, Bowles has made himself in a really good left tackle. I don't love the rest of that line. It's not the worst in the league, which, by the way, is another reason with the Raiders, they terrify me. Other than Colton Miller, that team can't block anybody. But I think Denver's offensive line is middling. But the thing that's interesting with Seattle, or excuse me, with Denver getting Russell Wilson from Seattle is I like the weapons, but I would argue pretty easily Metcalf's better than any of them.
Yeah.
Lockett's better than any of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, to be fair, now the Chiefs have Kelsey, but it's kind of like the Chiefs are going from this, like, I keep likening it to the Chiefs had a movie with two movie stars in Kelsey and Hill. Now it's more of an ensemble anchored by one star, right? Like now it's more like Kelsey and friends. With Denver, it's kind of just like and friends. There is no like on 3rd and 8, that guy's getting the football. Like it's like, well, which maybe isn't the worst thing. Maybe you spread it around, it all works out. But in Seattle, there were two guys who if you got single coverage, that guy was going to win.
Yeah.
I don't know with Denver if that guy is going to win. And that I do think matters. I also have no idea if Nathaniel Hackett's a good coach, a terrible coach, or somewhere in between. There's just a lot of uncertainty in Denver where I don't have that with the Chiefs, and even to some degree, to be fair, I don't have that with the Chargers.
I think with Judy though, I think he has a chance to be that guy.
Could
Like
be.
I think he can go into a breakout role from the ensemble, like best supporting actor in the
Right.
Denver Broncos movie to a potential, actor in a leading role. He's got the talent. Like that was when he came out of Alabama, like the route running was by far and away like top level, like best route runner in the draft, I believe. And he was on his way to having a really nice season, even with Drew Lock's inconsistencies. But now you're dealing with a potential situation, an offseason situation with Judy, which we're not sure what the ramifications are going to be for that. And let's not forget, like the type of numbers that Sutton put up a few years ago were really impressive.
Yeah.
But
Excellent.
he hasn't been able to stay healthy, and he's had inconsistency issues as well. Like you're talking about, again, it's not Metcalf. I don't want to go ahead and put him, that type of conversation and comp together. But like a 3rd down and 7 type guy, I think Judy is a great pick. And what was so good about Lockett was his ability to stretch the field. And with Sutton's speed when he's healthy, like that's definitely comparable to Lockett. Like he's that type of guy where he's going to be a big downfield threat for them. And then you still have Hamler with that speed. You can use him on crossing routes. And they got that really athletic kid from Missouri. Now that they moved down from fans. Yeah.
Nobody can pronounce the name. Yes, Alberto.
Yeah, he played 2 hours for me, and I still can't pronounce his name.
Yeah.
So they're interesting. Like they are genuinely interesting because I think you have perhaps the second highest ceiling offensively in the division, or they could be the worst offense if Russ is cooked. I just don't think he's cooked yet. But if he is, even whatever kind of magic Nathaniel Hackett can potentially cook up, if Russ is done or if he's already on the decline, I think we'll see it fairly quickly because this division will beat the hell out of you if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah, no, there's no question. And I look, if he's done, they're going 7-10. I mean, if that's the case, it's over. I'm with you though. I don't think he's done. I still think he's got a couple of really good years left in him. I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender, but I do think they're a playoff team. Yeah. And obviously we'll see how that shakes out. And a lot of that, and you mentioned it, like Cortland Sutton, of all those receivers, he's my favorite guy. Can he stand the field?
Yeah.
If he can stand the field, maybe he has 1,200 yards. It's possible.
Really quickly, I also know that Gonzo weighed in on Khalil Mack and how everyone's kind of boosting him up. He hasn't been the same since 2018, had the foot injury with Chicago last year. I think if you're actually talking from talent top to bottom, from offense to defense,
the Chargers have the best roster.
The Chargers have the best roster.
Yeah.
I'm with you there. And Jalen weighs in on that too. He says he thinks they have the best roster, but they're a choke artist, like you mentioned. Like, how much would we be going in that other direction, taking truly the most talented team from top to bottom, if not for the fact that they continue to find all these different ways? Like, is it fair for us, even though the roster is vastly improved from a season ago, for us to look at it and say, yeah, they have the best roster, but we still just don't trust them?
Oh, it's 100% fair. I mean, at some point, you've got to win games. Okay? I mean, look, talent's great. My dad has a great saying I believe in wholeheartedly. Potential's a fancy word for saying you've never done anything. Because if you're any good, you don't have potential. You're just good. The Chargers are the kings of having potential.
Yeah.
Every year, it's, I think they've got a lot to, and look, I go, listen, we all make predictions. I predict every game like a moron every year, okay? And I do it in May.
That was a great piece, by the way. That was fun to read.
Thank you. But my God, I mean, I'll be a dope, I'm sure, by October. That being said, everybody makes their predictions. I've seen a lot of people pick the Chargers to go to the Super Bowl. And I get it. Like, from a talent perspective, you could make that argument. But I look at them and go, can they make the playoffs first? Can they do that? Because every year we do this. And like last year, listen, and I give the Raiders a lot of credit. That team went through more crap last year than any team I can remember in a long time. And Derek Carr and Rich Bisaccia held that team together, made a crazy run at the end to get into the playoffs. But I don't think even a Raiders fan, if they're being honest, would argue that that team was more talented than the Chargers last year. And the Chargers go into a game where all they've got to do is win one game to get in, and they can't do it. They just can't do it. And, I don't know what I think of Staley. Like I like him, but he's so aggressive that it's going to backfire in some games. They're going to lose some games based off of the aggression. They're also going to win some. They're going to lose some based off that. I'd also say with the Chargers, the one thing other than the fact they just lose every big game they play that scares the hell out of me, they got a lot of guys in that team that get injured. A lot of them. I mean, Bosa gets hurt all the time. Derwin James has missed, I think, 28 games over his first 4 seasons. Okay.
Keenan Allen, Mike Williams.
Mike Williams and Keenan Allen.
Eckler's missed
Austin
a couple of
Eckler
games.
has been durable, but last year got hurt. You're talking about Asante Samuel last year, a really good rookie, but unfortunately had multiple concussions. I mean, that is a team. Talented, yes. They're hurt all the time. And not like a one-off thing. They're hurt constantly. And you know what? People say, well, the Chargers, they have no luck. Well, if you keep bringing guys back who are hurt over and over and over, at some point it's not bad luck. It's just you're rolling the dice, and you're probably going to lose on that. So I do wonder with them, can they stay healthy? Khalil Mack's another guy who's coming off a big injury. Like, can they stay healthy? And if they can, look, I don't care. I mean, shouldn't say I don't care. I won't be impressed if they beat the Chiefs week 2 at Arrowhead. I don't care. Like that to me means nothing. Can you win the game when you play them in December? Or I think they play them in real late November. Actually, can you win that game? Because that's the game where it's going to be okay. You're tied with 5 games to go, and if you win the tie. Like that's been the game that they always seem to stumble all over themselves in, and they can't find a way to win. Let's wrap up the AFC West here real quick. If you had to pick a team I'll combine the 2 bullet points I have here. A team that, if of the 4, that you think you could be the most off on one way or the other, which one do you think it is?
That I would be the most off on,
In
or
your
that
prediction, yeah, which one do you think could vary the most?
probably the Broncos, right? Because of the level of variance that you have with a brand new quarterback and a brand new system thrown to completely different guys than he had before. At least with the other 3 AFC teams, you know that it's a stable and very good quarterback group. You have Mahomes, you have Justin Herbert, you have Derek Carr, and regardless of where you rank Carr amongst the NFL's elite, or if he's in tier 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it
Good
is,
player.
yes, good player, consistent player. You said he's a top 12 quarterback. I'd have to go and maybe take a double, closer look, but I think that's a fair ranking for him.
He's right around that.
Yeah. So I think there's just so much unknown with Denver. Like, which defense are we going to get? It's a brand new coach coming in. What sort of scheme is going to work for them? Are they going to be able to generate any sort of a pass rush? Like they have some aging guys on that defense as well. How are they going to be able to hold up against a division that you might have to stop? And if you give up less than 30 points, like, are you going to be in the game? That's the sort of perspective that with Denver, you just don't know what to expect on both sides of the ball, that it could either be spectacular and a perfect fit, or it could be a complete and total disaster. I feel like I can project the other 3 teams much better than I can with Denver.
Well, you and I are in lockstep because I feel the same way. I will tell you right now, if you're them, you better get off to a damn good start because early in the year, their schedule is very easy. They play Seattle on a Monday night, home to Houston. They get the Niners at home on Sunday Night Football. Then they're at the Raiders. That's always a difficult game in division. Home on a Thursday night, short week, playing the Colts. And then you get Monday Night Football at the Chargers. Okay, tough game. But then you have the Jets and the Jags before a bye, right? Like that is a schedule where you could easily be sitting there and looking at 6-2. But after the bye, their schedule, especially down the stretch here, becomes no joke. I mean, you come out of the bye, you play at Tennessee, difficult game, home to the Raiders. Okay. Then you get the last easy game of the year at Carolina. After that, their last 6 games at Baltimore, Kansas City, Arizona, at the Rams, at the Chiefs, home to the Chargers.
Yeah, it's kind of like how they're ending the season is how the Chiefs are starting the season.
Right. And, it's funny. If you look at the other schedules with the Chargers and Raiders, it's kind of the same. Like the Chargers and the Raiders also have like fairly easy schedules if memory serves. If the Chiefs are even with those teams after about 8 weeks, turn out the lights because the Broncos are going to struggle down the stretch. The Raiders schedule is impossible late in the year. I mean, I think it's one of the hardest stretches I can remember. I'm going to pull it up really quick before we move on here. The Raiders' schedule at the end of the year is almost as hard as Denver. I don't know if I'd say it's quite as hard, but it's close. They start out the year, they play the Chargers week 1, that rematch of the week 18 game. But you look at their slate down the stretch. So they week 13, Chargers at home. Then they're at the Rams, home to New England, at Pittsburgh, home to the Niners, home to the Chiefs. Now they got a few home games in there, but again, a lot of playoff teams. A lot of teams are going to be fighting for playoff positioning. So look, I think those teams, if you're Denver, if you're the Raiders especially, you need to get out in front of Kansas City. You need to be out in front by a couple of games going into November. If you're not, you're done. You're not going to beat that team out.